Now we're actually going to talk about something that I've experimented with quite a lot, and this is creating exam timetables or study timetables, just planning your time ahead. Essentially what I found is that you only want to plan your study ahead if you know you're going to be super busy. For example, during exam periods where I had up to 3 exams per day and they were back to back, I had to precisely say what I would study between those exams to make sure that I was productive between exams and that I was always ready for the next assessment. Or even at this time where I had a lot of assessments due in a pretty short amount of time. So this is where I realized the importance of actually planning ahead. Because there is no way I could have done my physics IE only 11 days after my maths IE was due and the English in between. And yes, that English is the 3-hour English that I talked about earlier, so that makes a lot more sense hopefully now as to why it only took me 3 hours. Because I knew how important it was to finish it early, so I had time for physics. What I realized is that Google Calendar wasn't really right for me. Instead, what I chose to do is to make an Excel spreadsheet. For example, this is the exam timetable that I just finished literally 2 days ago. It's now Thursday, my last exam was on Tuesday, getting this out straight away. But essentially in the dark boxes is where I have my exam, so that way it clearly stands out when I have an exam or when I had assessments. When I had an assessment day, it was very clear that I had something due on that day. It was nice and bold. And then I color-coded each subject to what subject I'm going to study during that time and exactly what I'm going to do within that subject. What I found is that when you're making this sort of timetable, if I just do Chinese study, I'll end up getting distracted or just doing the simplest form of study, which is probably why I wrote about 10 pages writing characters in my book, even though it was probably the simplest thing to do, and it really wasn't what I had to do, which was grammar. You really want to make sure that you're specific with what you're going to be doing within that time. On the other hand, when it's just a normal term, for example, you still don't have IAs due, or you have but they're not so many, this is when I like to use the retrospective revision timetable method. So this is where I use Notion. Within each subject page, I create a list of all the different topics within each subject from the syllabus. And then I note down every time I've done practice papers or when I've done the questions that I rewrote from the syllabus. What this does is instead of timetabling your time to what subject you're going to be doing, you're actually timetabling each topic, because it doesn't matter if you spent 10 hours on induction for maths when you really don't understand it. Instead, what matters is that you understand it properly, whether that means spending 10 minutes on it or spending 3 weeks on it. That's why I found blocking my time to only be effective during time-limited weeks. So if you can, definitely try out this method that I'm talking about. This also really helps with spaced repetition. So when you note down what subject you studied today, what I like to do is on the next day, I put the same subject, and then a week after that, I note down to study the same subject again, and then I do it a month afterwards. By doing that, I make sure that I'm revising every single topic, but I'm also doing it at increased increments. The benefit to this is that by the end, you will not only remember everything so much better, but it also means that you won't have to cram all the information into the head overnight. Instead, due to spaced repetition, you've memorized everything over time and you understand it deeply because we've had a blocking method per subject instead of per time.